May 31st, 2025 live stream. I'm going to jump right into the questions that people have sent me before this stream. If you want to be able to send me questions so you know they'll get answered, then just sign up for my email newsletter. You'll get alerts about these live streams happening, and you'll be able to send me questions beforehand. You can find out how to do that in the link tree down below. Just subscribe to get my free ebook. First question. Hey there, Noah. Just need some advice, please. Does playing video games that are not sexual prevent or slow down or hinder recovery from PIED? Can I play during a reboot? Thank you. So, simple answer is no. Playing video games that are not sexual will not slow you down from recovering from PIED. There's different ways that our brain processes sexual stimuli from other stimuli. So when you're playing a video game and maybe, your dopamine is firing because you're killing the enemies and you're getting achievements and you're leveling up, still it's not interacting in the same way as it would if you were using sexual media. So you're still going to regain your sensitivity sexually, even if you're playing a lot of video games. Now, if you're recovering from a porn addiction and you're having trouble leaving porn behind, a lot of people find that there's a link between their video game use and their porn use, or their other media use and their porn use, because they're using all these things in a similar way to deal with difficult emotions or to escape from their lives. And it can put them in a more impulsive state to be playing a lot of video games. And when you're doing that, that can cause you to go to sexual content more easily than if you were not. So keep it in balance if you are struggling with porn addiction, but if you like having video games in your life, there's no reason to stop that just because of your PIED recovery. What's up? Good to have you here. As always, feel free to put your questions into the live chat. I'll answer as many as I can, hopefully all of them. And I'm going to be going through the questions that people have sent me before this live stream as well. Welcome, welcome. NoFap day 0. You got to start somewhere. Today could be day 0. Tomorrow could be day 1. A week from now, day 7. 30 days from now, day 30. I don't know what your longest streak is, but if you're like a lot of people out there and you've been struggling to get past a week or 2 weeks or a month, the good news about that is that brand new territory is not that far away. Like, you can get to territory that you've never been to before, and you can start seeing changes in your life that you've never seen before, which I think is pretty exciting. Good to see everybody. Welcome. Noah, what's your take on brain training that some therapists are now recommending on recovering from PIED? I myself am 35 and I haven't had a full erection since I was 26. Would you recommend this brain mapping technique? Okay, well, before I address your actual stated question about brain training, you say that you're 35, you haven't had a full erection since you were 26. That's 9 years. That's concerning to me beyond porn-induced sexual dysfunction. If you haven't had a full erection, even with pornography or even like during the night, nocturnal erections, that's something you should definitely consult with a doctor about, because you should, even if you have severe PIED, have had a full erection somewhere in there. And if you're not having full erections ever, that can be potentially damaging to your penile tissues. So definitely go to a doctor and get checked out if I'm interpreting what you said correctly. Maybe you mean you haven't had a full erection for sex since you were 26. If that's the case, PIED, sure. But if it's even with pornography, even at like right before orgasm, you're unable to get a full erection for the last 9 years, that's concerning. Now, for your real question, what's your take on brain training? If you're talking about like the headband, like the Muse, which is what I've seen some coaches recommending, I am unconvinced. I'm skeptical. It could have benefits. I haven't looked into it enough to know for sure, but I am skeptical about it. And I don't think it's necessary. I've seen a lot of people recover without using such methods, but there is brain training that has a much longer history, and it's been researched more, which is mindfulness meditation, which is a form of brain training. And if you have never explored mindfulness, what it is simply the ability, the skill to be aware of yourself, what's going on inside yourself, and what's going on outside of yourself in the present moment. And that awareness puts you in a place where you have more ability to determine your own choices and actions in the moment. If you've cultivated that mindful awareness, it gives you some separation from your own emotions and impulses. The opposite of mindfulness is addiction, which is why if you're recovering from addiction, it's important to train that ability of mindfulness. I heard that if PIED returns, recovery can last longer the second time. I was terrified about that. Now I avoid all sexual messages from girls. Can a few distractions like that bring PIED back? So, yes, it is true that if you recover from PIED, you get your erections back, and then you relapse, you binge, you get back into porn, and you bring your PIED back, that the second time you try to recover, it can take longer. And that's because you've basically been telling your brain, hey, don't change, because even if porn goes away for a few months, it's coming back. So hold on to that wiring for porn. Now, if you, while you were recovered, did have the opportunity to rewire and get some positive sexual experience that you've never had before, that can be an advantage, and that can actually counterweight that disadvantage and help you recover faster the second time because you've already done some rewiring and your brain has already become more accustomed to real intimacy. So it's not just black and white, there are shades of gray there. As for avoiding all sexual messages, it's a gray area. And I would say if you're receiving those messages and you're messaging with someone in order to build a connection to bring into real life, that's a more positive thing. If you're just doing that for sexual stimulation, then that's more on the side of like, this is a substitute for porn. Question from the chat. Hi, Noah. Every orgasm sends me straight into flatline. Is this about dopamine? Do I need to abstain from orgasm longer? Longest was 2 months. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I have worked with people who had a similar experience. I've seen that sometimes the effects of orgasm can be quite severe when you're in the midst of recovery, and that over time they get more and more mild. This, I can't guarantee is going to be true for everybody. Some people might always just have more sensitivity to the after effects of orgasm, might have a longer refractory period, might fall into a bit of a flat line. And if you're one of those people, then yeah, I recommend that at least for now, you practice Carezza style sex, where you abstain from orgasm. It's a slower, more relaxed form of sex where you don't get right up to the edge of orgasm. You try to reach a plateau of pleasure. And you can look this up yourself, Karezza, Carezza. And if you're doing this, you can show you a whole new way to appreciate sexual connection and intimacy. And you can find a lot of joy and satisfaction in Carezza style sex. And you can be having sex more often while avoiding the post-orgasm consequences of that. There's some noise outside the window. Hold on a second. I'm going to close it. So, yeah, hopefully with time doing that, you can get to the point where you can have orgasm at least occasionally and enjoy that as well. And that the after effects of that will get less and less severe. Is morning wood and nocturnal emission a sign of curing PIED? It is a positive sign, absolutely. Morning woods returning and nocturnal erections becoming stronger is a positive sign that your sensitivity has been returning. It's not necessarily going to guarantee you 100% that when you go to have sex, everything is going to go perfectly well, but it is a positive sign. The only real evidence that you're going to be able to have sex is having sex. And that's why a lot of people want to reassure themselves that they're going to be successful before they even try, because trying and failing, it hurts, it's embarrassing, it can feel shameful. But that's why I strongly recommend that you be open and honest with your rewiring partner. so that she or he knows what's going on, knows what you're going through. It removes those expectations. You don't have to worry about what will I say, how will I explain this if I can't perform. And you can take away all of those extraneous thoughts and expectations and just relax and enjoy the moment and see how your body responds. That's the ideal situation to rewire in. Day 80 on hard mode. Day 125, no porn. I'm seeing improvements. My goal is 730 days porn-free. I think this is a good amount of time to ensure that the brain has time to heal. That's an interesting number. I've never seen someone choose that number before. Um, yeah, I guess that would be about 2 years. So day 125, no porn. I'm very glad you're seeing improvements. Most people do see significant improvements within that first few months and see full recovery within a year from sexual dysfunctions stemming from their porn use. So if that's something that you're dealing with, I think, you have that long timeline in mind, which I think is great. You don't have your expectations set at, well, I've got to recover within the next month or the next 3 months, because that can set people up for disappointment. It sounds like you're in it for the long haul. And I think you'll probably be positively surprised in that time. You'll be pleased that you'll see more and more benefits of being porn free and reversing whatever harmful effects porn has had on you. Rewiring after rebooting hard mode for 7 months. I'm attracted to short, shy, and submissive girls, but the woman I've been attempting intimacy with is tall, arrogant, and dominant. I've been desperately trying to make it work with her, as she is the most beautiful person I'll ever be intimate with, and my dream is to have my first time with her. She's been super supportive, but after 10 to 15 attempts over 3 months, I haven't felt much, only got semi-hard, and I'm still light years away from intercourse. I don't know if it's me still being dysfunctional, or is this what recovery looks like? And how important is it to be with someone that is my type at this stage? I'm wondering if you were a client of mine and we were talking face to face on a one-on-one call, I'd be asking you more about how those attempts go. How do they feel? What emotions come up for both of you? Is there communication happening throughout those attempts? What are the expectations during those attempts? And what I'd be trying to steer you towards is skills like communication, being able to bring up, like, call a timeout or pause and bring up emotions and thoughts as they come up so you can talk about these things. Removing expectations that, like, this is going to work, and if it doesn't, it's somehow a failure. Being able to listen to your own desires and ask for what you want and steer toward what you want. And of course, keeping in mind what your partner wants as well, and finding ways that you can both enjoy yourselves. But finding that balance so that you're still honoring yourself and what you want and what you desire. And you might not always know what you want from the outset. You might have been fantasizing about what you want from your porn use and your masturbation for years, but that can be different from what you want really in the moment with a real person in bed with you. So follow your own desires in those moments. Ask for what you want and play, have fun, relax, explore. If you can do that, even if your penis doesn't respond the way that you want it right away, but if you can be genuine, if you can bring your whole self to that moment and you can find ways to be intimate and to bond, however your penis responds, most women will not get overly impatient. And they'll stay and they'll keep wanting to support you if they feel a good connection with you and they feel that you're fully present. As for how important it is to be with someone that is your type, I don't know. That's something that you'll have to figure out for yourself. And that's one of the joys. It's difficult, but it is a joy of this process, is figuring out who you are and what you really want without the influence of porn in your life. And this is part of that process. And I hope that you find that you are able to find sexual arousal and excitement and pleasure, of course, with your current partner. You might find, however, that no matter how objectively beautiful she is, that you feel more chemistry with a different type of person. And that's part of the process as well. For years after high school, I was struggling to get my feet off the ground. I didn't have much going for me, but last year I changed everything. I still feel bad about myself often, though. Could it be that I was so used to being depressed that I still carry that mental hardware? Or do I feel guilty about the years wasted? Or do I feel that I don't deserve the positive slope? Either way, it's been difficult to move forward and accept that life is good now. If you're asking me what you feel, especially in text, without me being able to speak with you eye to eye, um, I don't know. I don't know what you feel. If you're asking me these questions, uh, then I imagine you are probably feeling those things or believing those things to various degrees. One book that I really love that's filled with a lot of wisdom and that I recommend for you is Feeling Great by David Burns, who's an expert on cognitive behavioral therapy. He wrote Feeling Good originally a couple decades ago about CBT, and then he wrote Feeling Great more recently with everything he's learned in the intervening years. And in that book, one thing he says, and he starts the book with this, is that all negative feelings, all painful feelings, stem from thoughts. They don't stem from trauma or past experiences or brain chemistry or anything like that. They stem from thoughts. And that by changing our thoughts, we can change how we feel. So that book might help you identify what thoughts, and some of those thoughts I think you've already identified by your question, what thoughts are keeping you in that negative feeling space, and how can you pick apart those thoughts and really understand those thoughts and understand how they are flawed and how they are built from faulty logic and are not really true. And you can replace those thoughts with thoughts that serve you better and that create more positive feelings. Hey Noah, currently on day 103. A few days ago, I noticed my morning wood coming back, and now I have a chance in a few weeks on a potentially normal sexual contact. What are the odds that it'll go well? Okay. Well, like I said for the previous gentleman, I think the odds are at least, significant that you will be able to have sex. You're past day 100, you're noticing changes in your sensitivity and in your erectile strength and your morning wood. Your brain is more ready than it has been in a long time to find that connection with another person in real intimacy and to give you that arousal and excitement and sexual pleasure that you are looking for. But there's so many other factors. There's the anxiety of the situation. If you've attached any negative emotions to sexual opportunity, like shame, anxiety, embarrassment, those things will probably be coming up in the moment, and they can get in the way of sexual arousal, even if your body is ready. There's also, if you haven't had positive sexual experiences in the past, the matter of rewiring. Your brain is not used to getting sexual excitement from real skin-on-skin contact, from eye-to-eye contact, from being in the same bed with another person. It's used to having all those feelings from a screen. And it's kind of like, trying a new dish from a new an ethnic cuisine that you've never had before. And at first, like the spices and the flavors and the aroma and everything, it's all alien. And you might not feel an appetite for that at first. But after you've tasted it a few different times and you didn't get sick afterward and it actually tasted pretty good, now you start to crave it. And as soon as you smell those smells, as soon as you're exposed to that experience, now you're craving it. And now your appetite for it is strong. And it's the similar process that happens in the rewiring portion of this recovery. So you might find that you need more time than just one evening to get to that point where you are able to have intercourse. But that's why it's important, I think, the best is to talk beforehand with that partner about what's going on for you, or at least tell them, if you don't want to tell them all the details, that you don't have much sexual experience and that you get nervous and that you've had some negative experiences in the past. So it might take you some time to get comfortable and settle in and be able to get excited and have sex. At least that way, even without talking about porn or PIED, you set the expectations at that level of don't expect me to be like it is in the movies, like everything just to go perfectly well right away. And you can set the expectations at that level so that you can remove some of that pressure and you can relax, and she knows what's up, or at least part of it, and you can take your time. My dad is on my neck on getting married. I'm 28. As much as I hate this pressure, I'm not going to lie, it helps me be reminded of how important it is to stay clean, and life is not waiting. Now on like day 10, no PMO. Hey, day 10, fantastic start. Yeah, life is not going to wait for you. There are people I worked with who would do anything, who would cut off their own left arm to be where you are, age 28. You're still in the prime of your life, able to stop using porn and get yourself to the point where you're healthy and ready for a real relationship and real sex. Yeah, that regret about wasted time, it's a common thread between almost everyone I work with. Maybe you have it already. Maybe you wish you'd taken care of this when you were 20 years old, but now you're 28. But it's definitely not too late. And yeah, the earlier you take care of this and do whatever it takes to get out of this cycle and be porn free, the better you're going to set up the rest of your future to be. Noah, you as a recovered porn addict, do you ever have any impulses or temptations to look at porn? Yeah, I don't call myself a recovered porn addict because I do think that it's always going to be a part of me. And that's what I see in other people I work with as well. It doesn't mean that I'm always doomed to relapse, but I still do have thoughts. The images still do come into my mind sometimes. I still do have temptations. I still have accountability software on my devices because of that. And it helps me to feel like there's people looking at my screen over my shoulder in a metaphorical sense, having that accountability software like Ever Accountable or Covenant Eyes on my devices. It helps keep me on the path that I've chosen for myself, which is porn-free path. But yeah, that's definitely still a part of me. It doesn't plague me. It doesn't stop me from living my life, enjoying my life. But I do recognize that it's a part of me. And if I denied that it's a part of me, I would get complacent because I know that happened before. And I would probably lower my defenses and fall back into those traps. Can you define the terms you are using like flatline, PIED, and rewire? Yeah. Sometimes I take for granted that people in these streams understand those terms because they're common terms in recovery, but some of you I know are probably new to this journey. So PIED is porn-induced erectile dysfunction. It is a sexual dysfunction that comes from chronic pornography and masturbation use over the years. And put simply, you've desensitized yourself by overexposing yourself to sexual stimuli, and you've wired your brain to respond to a computer screen or a phone screen rather than to the touch of a real human being. And so when you get to an intimate situation, what's happening there is not enough to stimulate your brain into becoming aroused and getting and maintaining a strong erection for sex. Rewire is a portion of recovery in which, after you've rebooted, which is the first portion of recovery, rebooting is when you stop using porn, you probably stop masturbation, at least temporarily, and you allow your sensitivity to start to return. It's like, if you are eating candy all the time, and then you take a month off eating any processed sugar, when you come back and like you're eating sweet things like fruit, it's going to taste a lot sweeter because your sensitivity to sweetness has returned. And that's what the reboot does for your sexuality. And in your rewire, you are practicing real intimacy. You're cuddling, you're holding hands, you're kissing, you're practicing sexual touch. And that's teaching your brain to get excited by the touch of a real person rather than getting excited from a screen. And flatline is a period of time that people commonly experience in recovery. They can have more than one, of course. Not everyone experiences it, but a lot of people do experience at least one. And it's a period of time in recovery where you feel like your sexuality is gone. Your libido is gone. You feel like you're never going to have a sexual desire again in your life. Your penis might be shriveled or numb feeling, and it is temporary. The best thing to do in this period is just to accept it, Read stories of other people who have experienced it and gotten through it. Know that you'll get through it too, and allow it to happen. Because our best guess as to what this is, at least in my opinion, because it's not well studied, is that it's your brain shutting your sexual response system down in order to do some repairs. It's like if the road cracks in half, you got to shut down the road so that you can repair it before you can open it up for business again. And that's what I think is happening with the flatline. I failed to make it through 2024 as I had promised myself. I had some relapses through the course of the year, so I set myself up and started on no PMO on the 9th of March 2025 and have been free all through this period. And next month on the 9th, I shall hit my 90 days. Good job. The last few days of my second month, I had a wet dream, and the ejaculation was massive. I woke up very weak with broken joints, and my focus was low. Then at the beginning of the third month, I had another wet dream, but this time I remained strong and had my erections through the whole night. But the next days, I hit a flat line, and it's still ongoing to date. I got a girlfriend during this time and explained to her my situation, and she seemed to understand, but I think her patience may not last long because I see some signs of less loyalty coming in. She wants us to start practicing real sex, but I don't feel ready. I at least wanted to push for the next 3 months, then we would start practicing, but she seems not to be patient. She has had multiple relationships, and I feel she's trying to compare me to the other exes. No matter what the situation is, I'm working on bettering my life. So good job, getting back on this path, and you're on the way to 90 days. Wet dreams, yeah, they happen. Most often, you can't really avoid them if they're going to happen. You can try to avoid thinking or fantasizing about sexual scenes while you're going to sleep. That can maybe help prevent them, but they might happen. And unfortunately, it seems like it had some after effects on you, like sending you into a flat line. But that's part of recovery. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. As for your lady and her impatience, that's unfortunate. Hopefully you can communicate more. I'll look up an article and video I did called How to Tell Her About PIED and look up Overcoming Sexual Performance Anxiety. Those two articles and videos might help you with this situation. But you can definitely be trying different forms of intimacy and like practicing that and bonding and doing exciting things together in a sexual way that don't rely on erections. And that's what I would recommend for you. And you might find during those moments that, oh, my body is responding to this, and maybe we can try something. It's important to take the expectations that will happen away, but still be open to exploring different forms of intimacy and sexuality that don't rely on an erection. But definitely listen to your body. Like, don't try to force yourself to be able to have sex if your body is telling you you're not ready. But you can still do other things that will be intimate and hopefully exciting and satisfying for her and you. Is it a substitute to talk to girls online? Not sexting, because that turns me on, and maybe because in my head somewhere I have dirty thoughts. I've answered a similar question earlier. If you're doing it just for the purposes of stimulating your brain and you're not trying to create a connection that you'll then bring into real life, real intimacy, real dating, real sex, then yeah, it does sound like it's a substitute. Hey Noah, I struggle a lot with shame and guilt, and I find that a lot of my thoughts are preoccupied with trying to change past narrative. How do I reconcile with past and be positive for the future? It's a big question. It's a really big question. I think a lot of us struggle with that. Struggle with regrets, with negative self-talk, and with those thoughts and beliefs that are keeping us in that negative emotional space. And yeah, if we were on a coaching call, I'd ask you a lot more about what those thoughts are, and we'd explore together how to break out of that. But since this is a live stream, I'll just refer to you to a couple of texts. The one I mentioned earlier, Feeling Great, which helps you to better understand what those thoughts are that are holding you in those negative emotions and how to break out of that cycle. And Tiny Habits, because I really love that book, and I found that it's very effective if you commit to that approach of altering your behaviors that it can alter your mood and your thoughts and your beliefs about yourself and the story you tell yourself about who you are as well. So, Feeling Great and Tiny Habits, 2 books I'll recommend to you. My spontaneous boners mostly are either rare or don't reach more than 50 to 60% strength and don't last long mostly. Is that because of flatline? Because, for example, yesterday I got really hard erections, but I think that was because of substitutes I was indulging in. Although that's not how it got triggered, but maybe my mind was stimulated. Is that possible? Definitely, if you're in a flatline, using porn or using porn substitutes can push through that like fuzz of the flat line and get you to the point where you can get a full erection. But that's not a positive thing. Like if you're in a flat line, it's because, in my mind, your body and brain need to be in that flat line. And it's best to accept it, to allow it to run its course, to focus on other parts of your life, and to be aware of the signs that you're coming out of that flat line, but not to try to force it to end before its time is up. Keeping in mind all those things, would you recommend that I masturbate without porn, or can I try to go for hands-free orgasm? And also how to fantasize exactly if I try the later one, such that it doesn't fall in substitutes of porn. I don't know much about hands-free orgasms. I'm guessing you would want to do that because you view masturbation in a negative light, but if like you don't touch yourself, you think it would be better. But in my mind, masturbation is kind of a way to get accustomed to sexual pleasure and to prepare yourself for real sex. And in real sex, you probably don't want a contact-free orgasm. You want to be able to enjoy contact for a while before you orgasm. So I would say if you're considering one or both of those, that porn-free masturbation can be a healthy part of someone's life, even in recovery. I have a video and article all about that called Is Masturbation Healthy or Not? So search for that one on my website or here on YouTube. And some of the key guidelines to keep in mind for that are that you should be, if you are fantasizing, keeping it grounded in realism. Only imagining one scenario with one person and taking it slow in that fantasy. Like imagine you're on a date together, you hold hands for the first time, you kiss for the first time, and you progress from there in your fantasy. And also that you be using lubrication and fairly gentle stimulation so that it feels as much like real sexual contact and intercourse as possible, rather than prone masturbation or death grip or unlubricated. And lastly, that when you are doing it, it's for the purpose of enjoying your sexuality rather than for the purpose of escaping difficult emotions, right? You don't want to continue that cycle of using masturbation or sexuality for the purpose of coping with stress or loneliness. You want to be able to enjoy it for its own sake when you're already feeling good. Do I work with gay men as well? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've worked with quite a few. Do sexual herbs and supplements help? As in, no-fap would be for brain healing and add in some good sexual herbs to help heal the body and boost my sexual confidence. Or is healing only from no PMO? I don't know much about herbs or supplements. I'm skeptical. I think a lot of it might be placebo effect, but I could be wrong about that. Just look into it yourself and make sure there's no adverse side effects that you'd want to be avoiding. And there's probably no harm, to having some of those herbs or supplements, but definitely do your own research. I'm not an expert on supplementation or herbal cures or remedies for libido. I don't think it's necessary, especially if someone's problems are coming from their chronic porn use. The solution to that problem isn't going to be some herb. It's going to be stopping your porn use and training your brain to respond to real sexual stimulation from a real partner. But herbs might help in that. I don't know. 18 days in, and never in my life could I get past 1 week. Your content motivated me regularly. Found a new lifestyle with exercise, meditation, writing, and overcoming the urges. Thanks, Noah. Thank you for being here, and for your testimony, man. Good job in 18 days. Keep it going. That's the beginning of the next chapter of your life, hopefully. And yeah, one thing I will recommend to you is, and to everyone in this stream really, is to plug yourself into a community so that you're not doing this alone. Like being here in this live stream is a good start, but I really recommend you consider either my support group that I run or something similar out there like Porn Addicts Anonymous. The one that I run, we have a private Discord server. We have 3 group video calls every week. Most people come to 1 or 2 a week. And in those calls, we take turns checking in, talking about how the journey is going, our victories, our challenges, asking questions of each other. People become accountability partners for each other and friends. They even sometimes travel across the world to meet each other in person. It's been a really great community and helped a lot of people. And it's so much easier to have a team around you, team that you can talk to, get feedback from, get support from, rather than going it alone or just watching YouTube videos and consuming content rather than sharing the journey with some other people. So go to the link tree in the description down below and click on the group, the Rebooter Support and Discussion Group link to learn more about that. And I hope you join me, us. How do I get out of a rut and quit porn? It feels like an incurable disease. 9 years in now, and no matter my awareness of PMO's destruction, I can't seem to quit. I'm glad you're here. I've worked with many people who have said very similar things. Maybe instead of 9 years, it's 5 years, or it's 20 years, or it's 30 years. But I've seen people like that break that cycle. And the answer, the simple answer, because there is definitely a complex answer, an hours long answer, a weeks long answer, but the simple answer is to not give up on yourself and to not just keep trying the same things over and over. You might tell yourself after a relapse, oh, not again. This time I'll try harder and I'll do better. But you don't actually do anything different. You just really try. You put in the effort on the mental side to resist the urge when it comes, but continually you are not able to resist that urge. And a lot of people just do the same thing over and over again. So you need to be different. You need to try new things. You need to try things that might be uncomfortable, like talking to people in your life, getting support from real people, talking with a coach or a therapist, joining a group, installing accountability software on your devices, getting rid of some devices you don't need, changing your habits, like not bringing your devices into your bedroom or bathroom, getting an alarm clock instead so your phone isn't on that bedside table late at night or early in the morning when your willpower is low. You get the idea. You need to be changing things about your approach and about your life, about your habits, about your environment. And there is no one silver bullet that's going to solve the problem. It's usually a confluence of different things. And you need to be learning all about that and taking it one step at a time, one day at a time, believing in yourself, believing that you can do this, not blaming yourself for being where you are because you walked into a trap that was set up to trap you and that you were not educated about or warned about. There's nothing shameful about that. But now it is your responsibility to get yourself out of that trap. And you need to be asking yourself, like, what is the next new thing that I can do? How can I push myself in recovery farther than I have before? Tails and Tokens says Noah's group is awesome. Thanks for the endorsement. Let's see if I missed any questions here in the live chat. Feel free to post some more. If there's not, we can end before the hour. Let's see, did I miss any? Okay, here's one. Therapists sometimes suggest using visualization techniques in order to process trauma and rewire the nervous system in case of anxiety. Can this visualization be used in the case of PIED? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to respond to exactly what you're talking about, but there are many ways that visualization can help you in overcoming PIED and porn addiction. So with the method of porn-free masturbation that I recommend if you are going to masturbate, you're fantasizing in that grounded way, right? Like I mentioned before, you're fantasizing about a realistic scenario in which you're like on a date with someone, or you've been dating someone. You imagine how it is to kiss them for the first time. Maybe even imagine while you're fantasizing, talking to her about your experiences with PIED and your nervousness and your past like negative experiences having sex. And then you imagine and you visualize her being supportive, and that good warm feeling that you get from unburdening yourself and being honest and open with her. And now you're excited to, without the pressure and the expectations, explore each other intimately. And you can imagine all that, you can visualize all that. And that is going to start creating a new possibility in your mind. And it's going to allow you to better actually implement that fantasy into reality when you are able to. And that's important. And that is real practice. Like Michael Phelps, I believe, had a ritual, I think, from his coach of doing the same sort of visualization, but for competition. He would visualize everything that happened in the day leading up to and through a competition, a race. He would imagine how he would wake up, what he would eat. He would visualize like exactly his routine. He would visualize everything that would happen. Then he would visualize starting the race, visualize what it would be like throughout the race, and visualize winning. Visualize what he would do after he won. And all of that visualization, even though it's all just fantasy happening in your head, it allowed him to then recreate that visualization in reality. Like it started with things he all had perfect control over, right? When he woke up, what he did as soon as he woke up. And the more that he followed his visualization, like the more that he would believe, like, yes, I've already done this 1,000 times. I've visualized it 1,000 times. And now, just like I visualized, everything is happening. And so did victory, which he visualized 1,000 times. And you can do something similar with this. I find it very difficult to not sneak peeks at girls. In the gym, on the street, always sort of hyper aware, searching and peeking. Does this hold me back from recovery from PIED? So to a big extent, this is just hardwired into us. Pretty much every man I talk to has this hardwired into him. He notices, he looks. I think the 3-second rule is a good rule of thumb to abide by, where like, yeah, you have 3 seconds like to admire the beauty that you see, and then you look away and you move on with your life. Or like if you're single and you want to meet her, then you go and say hi. Like after 3 seconds, you should either go up and say hi, or you should look away and move on with your life. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something that you have to eliminate from yourself. But of course, overindulging in it and like going past that 3 seconds, or like saving the image of her for later consumption during masturbation, that can all lead off the deep end back into your porn behaviors. And a lifetime of viewing pornography and consuming pornography can exacerbate what is already natural to you, but it can exacerbate it and deepen it, pervert that behavior into something that is ultimately negative and destructive in your life. So yeah, I think balance is really required here. It's not about eliminating that drive within you to admire or to look, but indulging in it to its fullest is also not healthy. When my guardrails are down, I feel like I relapse every time. I try to keep my structure in place to keep me safe, but sometimes they aren't there. How do I get to where, if I have access, I don't act out? Great question. There's, of course, many methods, many different approaches that you can take to get to that point where even when you do have access, when you open that drawer and there's an old device in there that you forgot about, and that possibility comes to mind and your heart starts to thump, even when that happens, that you still have practice and protection internal protection in place that stops you from acting out. One thing that I think is very important in order to build this internal resilience is to have a plan for what you will do when this happens. Like ideally and practically, what should I do when that moment happens? When I open that drawer, I see that device, it's completely unprotected. I could use porn right now. It would be so easy. What can I do and should I do in that moment? And what I usually recommend is to have at least 2 or 3 different phases of this plan. The first phase should be something very easy to do. That's like, it's not like you're telling yourself, no, I told myself never again in my whole life, because in that moment, carrying the weight of never using porn again in your whole life is just too much. But maybe you can say like, all right, I'm not going to decide whether or not to use porn right now, but I know I'm just going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to run some cold water. I'm going to splash some cold water on my face because that's the first phase of my plan. And that, acts as somewhat of an emotional reset. It gives me a little bit of space. Okay, I can take a deep breath and now do phase 2 of my plan, which is maybe go outside and just walk around the block a few times. Or maybe it's doing an inversion, like a headstand against the wall, which is also proven to act as an emotional reset and kind of reset how you're feeling in the moment and give you, yet again, some more distance from that feeling of your heart pounding and that dopamine swirling in your brain and having that urge. And maybe phase 3 is something like it takes a little bit more effort, but now that you've gotten some distance, you're a little bit more rational, you can do phase 3, which is maybe call up a friend or family member, or maybe it's go to a drive and take a hike somewhere, or maybe it's walk yourself through the acronym HALT the BS, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, stressed, and ask yourself with each letter, am I feeling this thing? And if so, how can I address it directly? Oh, I'm hungry? All right, I'm going to make a sandwich. So you get the idea. It doesn't have to be exactly those phases, of course. You figure out the plan that is going to work for you and that you will actually be able to do in that moment. And then once you have that plan, you practice it. And by practice, I mean that you actually try to trigger yourself a little bit. You maybe just visualizing the last time that you were triggered, how it felt, like ground yourself in that experience again, feel that trigger, maybe even like fantasize a little bit about what it would be like to use porn. And then you open your eyes and you act out your plan. You follow your plan, you practice it, and you do that. Let's say just do it 6 or 10 times in a single day so that you really practice that plan. Then maybe you do it like once or twice a week from there on, just practicing that plan and keeping it fresh and keeping it sharp. And that way, when it actually happens that you do have that opportunity and the urge comes for real and it's unexpected, you have a much higher chance of being able to take the actions that will allow you to stay porn free than if you had not set up this plan and practiced it. Because when that moment comes, not much of your brain power is left to make a choice that you haven't already made in the past, right? It's very difficult in that moment when 80% of your brain is just saying, let's use porn, to come up with an alternative. But if you don't have to come up with an alternative, if that alternative is already all decided for you because you decided it in your past when you were feeling strong and you practiced it, it's practically muscle memory by now. You're much more likely to be able to do it. Thanks, Noah. I've followed you for years and have one question. Could chronic PMO be the cause of my bad social anxiety? Before PMO, I was confident and outspoken. Should I start Zoloft for anxiety? I'd rather quit my bad habits, like PMO, nicotine, etc., than start SSRIs, but that thought has been growing in me, whether I need SSRIs or not. Never used anything before. I start my final year of law school in 3 months, and I want to quit this habit. Thanks for the guidance. Whether or not to use medication, not something I'm qualified necessarily to answer. I can say that if I were you, I would certainly want to get rid of porn out of my life and see how I felt without the influence of porn before taking that step of getting medicated for it. I'm hesitant about medication, like brain-altering pharmaceuticals. I think there probably is a lot of benefit that they can have, and I'm sure they've benefited a lot of people. But just me personally, I'd certainly want to see if I could improve whatever symptoms I was struggling with behavioral changes and lifestyle changes before trying those pharmaceuticals, especially because social anxiety is linked with chronic porn use that I have seen. I've seen a ton of people say the same thing, and that have seen a great amount of benefit to their social anxiety, a great reduction in their social anxiety throughout the process of recovery. Might not happen right away. There might be ups and downs in their social anxiety throughout recovery, but once they get to the point where they are feeling much more stable in their porn-free life, I see a lot of people see a great reduction in their social anxiety, feel a lot more comfortable in their own skin, feel a lot more confident around other people. It's not universal. You might just find that, oh, I'm socially anxious even without the influence of porn in my life. And at that point, you can pursue other routes. But if I were you, I would definitely want to eliminate this factor first and see what you feel like, what life is like without the influence of porn as an adult human, living in this world before taking any other big steps. All right, I'm going to read from the book Gifts of Recovery, which is a great book that has a reading, a little bit of daily wisdom for every single day of the year. Gifts of Recovery by Timothy Stein. And then if there's any more questions that people have posted, I'll answer them. I've never seen any life transformation that didn't begin with the person in question finally getting tired of their own bullshit. Elizabeth Gilbert. When our lives are full of obvious and potential problems, we get good at bullshit. We bullshit others and tell them they have nothing to worry about. We bullshit those close to us and say we have everything under control. We bullshit loved ones and tell them we would never allow anything bad to happen to them. We bullshit ourselves and pretend we can maneuver our way out of the consequences created by our behaviors and choices. Sometimes our bullshit is convincing, but one way or another, the consequences always show up. As long as we embrace our bullshit, nothing changes. Gifts of Recovery by Timothy Stein. We read that as well at the end of every group meeting in the support and discussion group that I mentioned earlier. It's a good way to keep yourself thinking about new lessons and new bits of wisdom in recovery from porn or sex addiction every single day. And it's a good journaling prompt as well. If you're wanting to journal, but finding that you don't know what to journal about, that is a good one to get because it'll give you something to think about that you can then process on the page and journal about every single day. It's beautiful outside. Go play some disc golf, says Tails and Tokens. Agreed. Actually, it's kind of off and on rain here, but I might find some time for disc golf this weekend. Booking a call with you to talk about falling back into flatline after every orgasm as we speak. Great. I'll look forward to meeting you and talking about that. Thanks, says Simon. I'll stay away from mind-altering meds. I share the same views. I'm joining the gym as well. Yeah, I want to caution you, I'm not saying permanently stay away from them. Like I said, I think there's probably merit to those medications, and some people probably do need them or do benefit a lot from them. But in your case, yeah, if you haven't yet discovered what you feel like without porn in your life, that would be my top priority, is breaking that cycle, healing from that, and seeing how you feel before you make any other big choices. All right, gentlemen and ladies, if we have any ladies with us today, have an amazing porn-free week. I'll see you next time. As always, you can find more ways to work with me or get help from me in the link tree in the description down below. See you next time.